Go gallery. There we go. So good morning again for the 8th time. I think a few of you have been in here and out of here 2 or 3 times this morning already as I've tried to figure all this mess out. But it is 11:30. I need to change the Facebook time. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody see me, hear me? Okay. All right, so what I want to talk about today when it comes to run form, we've covered everything starting at the feet and the ankles all the way up to the top of your head. We've covered all of that in terms of how it should be and how it should look on you when you're running, or what you should think. So I want to take a step further. We got into a good little discussion a couple weeks ago about aerobic decoupling or about aerobic development type stuff, kind of late in the conversation when some questions were asked. And so that kind of moved me in a direction to talk about also walking, because Jen actually brought it up a while back that she would love to hear a little more chat about what walking actually is, or how walking should be done. Because there's a lot of athletes that, we have these grandiose plans, whether we're marathoners or Ironman athletes or whatever, that, we're going to do this run, and we're going to do this and this and this. And the reality of it is that a lot of times we end up walking in those races at some point for some reason, whether it's the aid station, whether it's because we got a rock in our shoe, whether it's because, well, we just completely bombed our nutrition and this is where we're at and we're just miserably walking. But all of that happens. And the longer you go in duration or in distance, the more likelihood is that you will be walking, whether by plan or by force. So I want to talk a little bit about walking and the fact that I don't think that I know that athletes don't do it enough. So when I tell an athlete to go warm up or cool down, they're not including walking in there for the most part. A lot of times we end our run, beep, hit our watches, get in our car, drive home, or do whatever we're going to do after that. And so it's never a proper cool down. It's probably not a proper warm up because we're pretty much time crunched. So we're never doing it right. So we're missing those little bonus times to gain fitness. And what you'll notice is, sorry, I had a triple shot of Starbucks prior to this, so I'm trying to slow it down a bit. What you'll notice is that those little end caps of walking, warming up, or cooling down are very, very important. But what you'll also notice is that for those of you that I've worked with directly, I've given you like the AET workouts or the aerobic threshold type development workouts. They're miserable. They suck because you have to go slower than you can go. You have to go, I can't even freaking run at this certain heart rate range, right? But they are vital for developing that low end engine. Again, the longer you want to go in duration, the more you have to have that low end development, right? You have to have the ability, like the diesel motor or the charcoal, to just go forever at a very low expense. By default, we want to go straight to the sports car, straight to the carbs or the glycogen stores, and just hammer it. So you actually have to train to walk. So what I did a few weeks ago, I guess a while back, is I said, you know what, I want to see what it's like to do a lot of walking. And for those of you that spy on Strava and into that kind of stuff, you'll notice I would get on the treadmill and I'd walk anywhere from an hour to 4 hours in one duration, walking on the treadmill. And I'm playing Call of Duty while I'm walking. I'm walking 3.5 to 4.2 miles per hour, playing a freaking video game, but still walking the whole time. My heart rate typically when I did that was 95 to 105. Now, that number is unique to me, obviously, because you don't have any context on my frame or my range of heart rate zones. But I'll tell you that it was actually on the low end of what was functional in terms of being considered a workout or not. There's a certain point to where when you walk slow enough, it's good for mobility and moving and blood pumping, but it's not really baseline aerobic development. There's like a little area in there between what is kind of casually walking, or if you're going shopping, the pace you would walk to get to the store, and then fitness walking, which is a little bit faster than that, and then the low end running, which is the lowest and slowest that you can run without having to walk, but also without sliding into that tempo zone, that kind of just like pitter patter, here we go type zone. So what I want to talk about today is initially the talk is going to be about the difference in running and walking. There's a great difference. And I'm sure a lot of it you guys are going to go, yeah, dummy, like I know that. That's very obvious. But hopefully some of it you kind of go, huh, okay. So I want to start, and I've just made a very simple list up here of some things that just came to mind. Ultimately, right off the top, running is going to burn more calories. And I know you guys probably can't see this. It's going to burn more calories, and I put equals more, and you guys cannot see my art there, but it's a pizza slice. So equals more pizza, right? running is going to work. It's really, really, really good for work on that high-end development. Walking, you can't walk fast enough to really even develop a tempo type of workout to mimic that type of workout. It's going to be harder in running. It's going to be harder to stay truly aerobic without a great level of discipline and patience. And also now, because it's hot pretty much where all of you are, like stiflingly hot, you're going to notice that until you're acclimated, your heart rate's already going to be naturally elevated. So you're actually going to be walking and running slower to stay in those specific areas that you need to stay into. And so that comes into account as well. And the last thing is running, obviously. I think everybody on here that I know of has had some type of running injury. There's a very high chance of running injury. Stats say 20 to 35% of injuries that you can get in endurance sports are from running. Whereas walking is like 2 to 6% or just something ridiculous. If you have to step on a nail or walk off a curb or something to hurt yourself walking for the most part. And so looking at the walking side, you can do things that are going to get the heart rate up without having to walk a blazingly fast pace. So each of you, I'm sure you've all done walks at some point in time, and I know that Jen and David for sure have done this type of walk, is how fast can you walk and still be walking, right? What pace can you walk at and still be walking? I know for a fact I can walk a high 12-minute mile, and that's my pace that I can walk at, and it still be considered a walk, okay? So next time you go out and you're doing a warm-up or cool-down, see how fast you can actually walk and your little legs just a kicking along, right? See how fast they can go. This is not a comparison point between me and you or you or another athlete. It is how fast can you walk, and then all of a sudden you're going to go, holy crap, I'm out of breath. Like, I'm tired from walking. And if you do it long enough, your hips are going to hurt the next day. You're going to be a little tight, a little sore, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But so to up the ante, if you want to go out, let's say you want to go out and walk 3 miles per hour, which is 20-minute miles, right? You want to go out, and that's kind of, hey, I want to do that. You can increase the cost of that aerobically by doing things like a weighted walk, right? So you either put a weight vest on, you grab a couple dumbbells, a couple jugs of milk. I mean, who knows that shuffle when we're trying to get in the house with 19 bags of groceries on our arms and just as quick as we can go, and you get there and you're going, whoo, man, I'm a little tired, right? I recommend no more than 8 to 12% of your body weight in that weight, especially initially. I'd stay on the low end of that, but that will get the heart rate up without actually making you have to walk faster. Another thing you can do if you have access to a treadmill, incline walking. Incline walking, vert days, man, you can get some legit fitness walking uphill. I mean, crazy good fitness doing that. Tire drags. This is something that I've been doing for probably a year, 18 months now, something like that. It's more in the ultra endurance community than it is in the triathlete and normal runner community. But the thing is that you hook that tire on a strap around your waist. And there's a company, if anybody's interested, they make them, and they got a little bungee in there that makes it kind of buffering for the vibration and stuff. You go and walk, and it will blow your legs up. I mean, it is so, so, so good. And it's such a great workout. Heart rate's elevated, and you're not going anywhere. You're walking slow as a snail, but it's a good strength workout that you can incorporate in. Again, getting the heart rate up so it's functioning in that fat burning zone, if that's kind of how you want to see it, but it's in that low aerobic zone. And then, so the next one is lower aerobic work is much easier, right? It's easier to keep. When you go and try to run and do aerobic development, if you don't have a history of developing that, it's going to be very hard and frustrating at first. And Garrett knows, he struggled. We went back and forth several times when it was like, Garrett, just shut up and keep doing it. And Garrett shut up and keep doing it. And he did. And once he did that, he saw success long-term from that. Much lower risk for injury. We discussed that a second ago. It takes practice to walk fast or to walk long, okay? And there's some of you, I know David did it last week, I think, or a couple weeks ago. Jen, I think I turned you loose on one last week as we're kind of coming back. And it's, hey, I want you guys to go from, I want you to travel on foot for 2 to 4 hours. I don't care how you do it. You can run, you can walk, you can run, walk, you can hike, you can do whatever you want to do. Be on your feet for that long. And a lot of you probably, when you do that, are going to get sore from that. You're going to be beat up a little bit. Your hips will be tight. You're going, man, all I was doing was walking, but it's actually really, really, really good because you stay in that low end aerobic development base work, if you will, for a very, very long time. But to kind of frame this in for those that watch this later, David is targeting 200 miles in his 55-hour race at the end of the year. And Jen is a very experienced marathoner who's coming back from an injury. So there's a little bit of a base there of what they're doing, but that's going to keep them healthy and start to kind of rebuild that aerobic system since they've taken some time off or stepped away as they kind of had to pivot just a bit. So it does take practice to walk long or walk fast. It is definitely, this is something that Jim brought up a while back, it's definitely a huge gait change from running, right? So you can run very well, no issues. A lot of you on here probably don't get sore anymore. People watching this later probably don't really get sore from running anymore unless you do something, some hill work, or you do, a lot of miles or something like that. But to walk a long distance, go and walk for 2 to 4 hours. You're going to be sore. You're going to go, man, I was doing walking. Like I said earlier, like it's just walking. It shouldn't be that hard, but it really is because your gait changes so much and you're going to take many, 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 many more steps. That's the key. Your feet will strike the ground more than if you're running. It'll strike the ground more than if you're walking, than if you're running easy, running tempo, or running hard, right? As we kind of go up that list I just named off, your feet should hit the ground less each time, okay? So that's just something to bear in mind. You got to pay attention to what you're doing when you're actually walking for fitness. And then the last one, I think the most important one for all of this is it is more beneficial to accessing the fat, to utilize that as a fuel. We talked a little bit about it in the last video that we did a couple weeks ago. And what I mean by that is the body wants to default to that kind of anaerobic state-ish. It wants to default to that easier access fuel, which are the carbs, which is the glycogen stores. We want to teach it as endurance athletes or anybody. You could be running a 5K. You're still an endurance athlete. You want to teach it to develop the ability to access that fat early on. That's your more long-term sustainable fuel. I don't care how lean you are. We all have fat that we can burn forever. We always, always, always will. So I challenge all of you all, if you're working with a coach, reach out to the coach and say, hey, coach, listen, I know I'm doing this much in run volume or this much work. Can I add in 2-hour walks per week? Can I add in 90 minutes I want to go walk for 90 minutes on Sunday? And this is something to where you can go with kids, right? You can go hike, you can find a trail and walk. This should be your adventure exploring time. Now, we're not going out there casually walking with grandma who's got a walker behind us. We're walking with a purpose. Okay, we're getting out there and we're getting after walking. It should develop a light sweat. If I had to give you, because I don't know all your heart rate ranges, if I had to give you an area of functional walking, I would say anywhere from 100 to 120 beats per minute is where you need to stay. You stay in that range, I don't care what the other ends of your zones look like, that's going to be a really good range for you to develop functional fitness just from walking. Shoes are very important in walking, just like running. Hydration, very important, the longer you go, things like that. But at the end of the day, obviously we're runners, we want to get better at running, and people laugh at me when I tell them that when they become really good at walking, they will become much better at running. People just can't seem to grasp that thought process or that theory, because none of us are 80 years old at the mall with our white sneakers on, cruising around doing hot laps in the mall. But I can promise you, my goal when I grow up is that I will be crushing souls at the mall when I'm 75 years old in my white sneakers. That's because I've done so much walking to get fit early on. I want to go past grandma and those blue hairs and for them to go, whoa, what was that, right? Got like the little Sonic the Hedgehog thing going on behind me. Has anybody seen that movie, by the way? It's freaking legit. If you have kids, it is awesome. If you don't have kids, it's still awesome. So the thing is the takeaway from this is you can't run easy enough to access that fat burning area for long enough, okay? Factor in the heat, factor in the terrain, factor in the all kinds of things. You just can't do it. You just cannot functionally do it. Now, that's not to say, and what Garrett knows, he's done my AET before, what he knows is you pick that heart rate range. Let's say, for example, you want to go out this weekend and say, hey, coach, I want to go out, or if you're uncoached, it doesn't matter. I want to go out, I want to do 2 hours of movement. Okay, cool. I got 2 hours to spare. Do a run walk, but commit to keeping your heart rate between 105 and say 110, or 105 and 112. Keep that range tight. Don't make it 100 to 120 because there's two different things happening there, right? Pick a range and own it. Sometimes you run, sometimes you walk. Sometimes you run, sometimes you walk. You do that long enough. You do that 2-3 times a week, 2 or 3 hours worth of that a week. In say 8 weeks, you're going to notice that you can actually run in that range. Albeit it's a very slow run, but you can actually run in that range. And then what do? You adjust that zone just a bit, move it down just a bit, and say, okay, here's where we're at. I want to develop the ability to run at 104 beats instead of 107 beats. Adjust it down, commit to that. Run, walk, run, walk, run, walk. Okay? But that's all the extra stuff that you can do already that's going to make you a better runner without having to actually run. And if you'll notice, this entire series, this entire Run Form series, I haven't said anything about certain running workouts. I haven't said anything about really breathing technique. I haven't said anything about, for the most part, shoe selection. None of this other stuff that we think of as running, right? We've talked about the functional pieces that no one wants to discuss, that no one wants to do because it's not sexy and you're not going to PR your freaking fat burning zone runs or walks. You're not going to PR those. Face it, it's cool. But at the end of the day, they're going to make you a better runner if you commit to it and make it happen. So any questions with those, kind of that presentation of those ideas and thoughts? Does anybody have any thoughts or feedback on that?